All right. Good evening, everybody. As Amanda said, so I'm Chief Sean Fallon. I've worked in the cybersecurity field or realm for about a little over 20 years. Uh, Currently, I work in NATO's Maritime Command, doing cyber threat intelligence and user awareness. But my main specialty is education and awareness for users and developing those products to teach people. Um, now, every country is very different, so I've tried to generalize this across most areas. I've taken a lot of, there's many different risks and awareness and scary things that can happen with cyber. So I've tried to take in some of the main things that we see with a lot of the NATO people traveling, or just in general awareness that we see. And I've kind of tried to just focus on those pieces to kind of keep you safe while you travel abroad. So I've broken this presentation up into three different parts. So we'll talk a bit about what you need to focus on before you travel. This is a generalized field before you travel, so you're not going to do this every single time you travel. Once you set up most of these things before you travel, they'll carry out to every trip you do. From there, we'll talk about what you'll focus on while you're traveling. And finally, once your trip's all done, what you'll do at the end to kind of clean everything up and make sure everything's safe when you get back home. Okay, so before you travel, we'll talk about six main topics, which is backing up your data, applying software and patches, enabling multi-factor authentication, VPN software, device finder, and auto connect of networks. Again, those are a lot of big terms, big acronyms. I'll go through and kind of talk about them a bit more generalized to give you a better understanding of what those things really are and what's the point of them. So let's talk about your devices. You should really be aware of what your devices are and what they actually contain about you. Your devices contain a lot of information and personal information about you that you may not actually be aware of. They store credit card numbers, bank numbers, your browsing history, your contacts, just about everything you do on your phone is stored in some way, in somewhere. And that can all be accessed by anybody who's able to get into your accounts. You need to think about that because identity, everyone thinks that if someone steals my device and steals my cards, they're going to get my identity and steal my identity. I disagree with that. Most attackers that steal your phones or steal your information, they're not actually trying to steal your identity. They're trying to get into your accounts. Because the thing is, if somebody can get into your accounts and change the information, they've actually locked you out of your account that you can't even verify it's your account to get back into it. So that gives that person longer ability to get in and access your email or your Facebook, or even getting into your banking account where they can get in and move information for quite a long time. That takes you a long time before you can actually secure it. I watched a really interesting program about from a professional pickpocketer where he kind of talked about what he would like to steal off somebody. Everyone thought it was their wallet because the credit cards and the physical cards that they can get access to, they can be used and stolen. But he actually said that no, he doesn't want a wallet, because the thing is, if he steals a credit card, you can cancel that card quite quickly and block that person out. What he's trying to get is your phone. If he can get into your phone, he can get fully into your account, steal your information, access your banking, your credit card for a longer period of time before you're actually able to disable it or lock that person out. So that's key. What someone's trying to go to is they want your phone. It's become a new hot thing that a lot of people try to get a hold of. So we'll talk next about backing up your data. Your phones, your laptops, they contain a lot of information that you're putting on them. Your financial data that you've stored in your browser so you can log in easily, your photos, your video, your contacts, personal information about you, your medical history, all that kind of stuff stored in your devices. And you really should know what's on your devices. So by taking account and looking at what's there, you can take that information and back it up before you go anywhere. That just stores it and saves it, whether you back that up to just a little removable hard drive or to a cloud-based Google Drive or something like that where you can store it and secure it. What that does is if your device is stolen while you're overseas, or you can easily disable that device and you still keep all your data and you control your information. But the other thing it does as well, if we're talking about laptops or phones, is if one of the new attacks that's happening a lot right now is what's called ransomware, where people are putting a virus on your computer that's encrypting your hard drive and making it so you can't access your data anymore. But if all your data is backed up elsewhere, is it really a big deal? Because what you can do is just reset the device to factory default or reinstall Windows and just put your data back on. And it's a bit easier to understand or easier to replace that data. And the other thing to think about is if you understand the data that's on your device, well, then there's less of a risk of that data being stolen. Because if you know all the data on there, if someone takes your phone or someone accesses your device remotely, well, you already know what data they're going to take. So you're able to control and limit what they're doing. One of the things that we're starting to see a lot of is people are storing personal information such as passwords, logins for accounts, that kind of information, even tax information or bank account numbers in what we call a flat file on their computer. That could be a Word document or a text document, and they're just storing it in the open. So if I was to remotely access your computer, that's a treasure trove of information that I can get about you, where I can get into all of your accounts, all of your passwords, and I can change everything. So if you're going to store something like that, you need to start thinking about encrypting that file. There's a lot of Windows has built-in software, and there's other software you can use, which it'll encrypt that any document you want. So only you can open it with passwords and control. So it's something to think about of how you're going to store that information. Next, we're going to just talk about applying software and patches. Before you travel, you should make sure all your devices are updated. Right now, most of us, and I do as well, we set all our devices to automatically update, all our virus scanners to automatically update, and we just rely on the system to do it for us and take care of it. That's great, and most of the time it does it and it makes sure it's done. But before you travel, you want to make sure that actually did happen. Go into your virus software, check the date was last updated, look at your operating system, see the date it was actually updated to verify that you have the most recent patches and software. That makes sure that your devices are safe while you're traveling. Have your most recent updated of virus definitions so that your computer or your phone can verify new viruses that are coming out. And a point I raise, if you don't already, you should really put a virus scanner on your phone. They act the exact same as a computer. The same information flows through them, the same processing. But a lot of people don't treat them as a computer or think that it's there. But many viruses can get put onto phones, and they can act just the same as a computer. So you want to run a virus scanner on your device. Okay, multi-factor authentication. This has gotten big. It's incredibly important that you should use. Basically on any website, any app, anything that says, hey, do you want to use multi-factor authentication? The answer should always be yes. What multi-factor authentication is, it's just multiple ways to verify it's you before you access a website or a service. And generally it breaks down to these 3 points. It's an inclusion of all 3 pieces or 1 or 2 of them. So it's something that you know, whether that's a password or a passphrase or just a little swipey symbol you do on your screen in order to open it. And that includes as well with something that you are. That generally includes a fingerprint scan. And next, it's something that you have, which is an authenticator app on your phone or a little hard, what we call a Vasco token, which verifies you by plugging it in. And a combination of those 3 allows a website to verify who you are and that you need access to your account. This is incredibly, incredibly important. Without this, it's very easy for an attacker to pretty much guess your password to get into your account. But if you have multi-factor authentication on and say you have a basic, easy password to guess, they can't get in at that point because a second layer is required in order for them to the website to verify who you are before you access that account. I recommend using what's called an authenticator app. It's an application on your phone that randomly generates a code. And that code coincides with the website. So for my Google account or my Microsoft or my Facebook account, I use an authenticator app that verifies me by a random code. So it's an extra layer step because it's very randomized, so it's tough to guess. What I don't recommend, and I hate it that most websites are using this, generally the most easy way or the primary way a lot of websites, even banking software, use to verify you. They use it by sending you a text message. It's easy, it's great. You know it's coming to your phone, but the network and the equipment that telecommunication companies use to send SMS or text messages, it's unencrypted, it's horribly open. So anybody sitting on there knowing what they're doing can actually take all that information and they can get a hold of the code that's being sent to you. So I advise highly against using it unless it's your only resort and you have no other option. Don't use it. It's also very easy for your, and it was happening a couple of years ago in San Diego, it's easy for them to clone your phone. So basically what that does is if your phone is cloned, somebody can receive the text message that you're receiving on your phone on the dummy phone, and then they have access to your account. So it limited your ability to use SMS text messaging. There was a big attack that happened, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, where devices were discovered on about 3 or 4 different Asian telecommunication companies, where every text message being sent through their network was being funneled to another organization. So they were taking every text message that they have in order to try to collect the information. Again, it's difficult to try to pick out that one text message coming to you with that code unless somebody's focusing on you. So the risk is still low, but the risk is there. Okay, acquiring VPN software. Again, this is another very big step that you should have at all times and available to you. It's great to watch Netflix from other countries. That's what most people use their VPN for, but there's other crucial things and really important things that it's used for other than that. So what a VPN is, it's what's called a virtual private network. What it does is it creates a secured connection between your device connecting to the internet and the internet. So you go through a company by connecting and creating a secured connection, and then from that company, you go out to the internet. So the internet just sees a generic IP address or information. They don't know who that belongs to. So it's very easy, very hard for them to connect your internet browsing to you because they don't know the connection between them. So one way I like to talk about kind of explaining it is if you look at the channel between England and France. If I go through that channel, I get to France, I don't get wet, nothing goes on me, it's a quick and easy go. I'm a direct connection right there. But if that channel breaks and the water comes all on me, well, I'm going to get soaking wet, or I guess possibly die. The same thing goes with the VPN connection. It gives you that straight connection from England to France without touching the water into the ocean. So what I advise is anytime you're connecting to a public internet connection, such as a coffee shop or a hotel, my example I'm going to use through all of this is Starbucks, because Starbucks loves giving free internet away. You should always have a VPN on your device. Don't just randomly connect to a public Wi-Fi. And I'm going to talk about this a bit later when I talk about public Wi-Fi. But you should have a VPN on to protect your information, protect what you're doing, so nobody can understand or see what you're doing. And that's the key thing you should always think about, is protecting your information and where it's going. There's a couple different options that are available. There's free VPNs that are provided, or there's paid services, but in the end, it always comes down to you get what you pay for. Free VPNs, they're easy to use, but they have limitations on them. So generally, they have what's called a bandwidth cap, so you can only pass so much data through their network in one given day, as well as they have a limit on the amount of devices you can connect with. And they also have bandwidth speed limits, so that you'll get a very slow, limited speed through their network. Where paid, you pay for the service, you get a limited bandwidth connection in any country you want to around the world, as well as you can connect multiple devices to one account. So where the benefit of that is generally a paid VPN service costs about 100 to 150 Canadian for the year. So it's not overly expensive. And generally you can connect 4 devices at once. So if you're a family of 4, you got 4 mobile phones, all of you could be connected to a VPN at the same time for about 100 to 150 Canadian a year. It's really not expensive, and it's incredibly beneficial. Some of the big ones that are out there, NordVPN and ExpressVPN are 2 about the biggest ones out there that most people will use. But it comes down to what you really want it for. If you just want to browse the internet so people don't know who you are, well, NordVPN and ExpressVPN, they're perfect for what you need. Personally, I use one called PureVPN, but I'm doing some things a little further than just browsing the internet, and I need other services available to me that they provide for me. But it depends on what you need, what you require for your needs. For free VPNs, like I mentioned before, your bandwidth is going to be limited, your device number is going to be limited, and there's just limited to what you can do. The two big free ones is what's called Privado VPN, as well as Hotspot Shield. And I think Hotspot Shield's one of the biggest ones out there. But the other thing to think about with a free VPN, they have to make their money somewhere. Where that money comes from is generally with the software they provide you to use the VPN. They'll push ads through to there, so you'll get ads on your screen, as well as your information isn't entirely protected. They will generally sell your browsing history like Google and Facebook does, because they have to make money in some kind of way. So it's things to think about when you do think about getting a VPN, is what do you really want it for? If it's just every once in a while, well, a free one's great. But if you're going to connect to a lot of public Wi-Fi's like in the hotel or Starbucks, then I would recommend paying the money for a year just to have that sense of security. So next, we're going to talk about securing your devices. So we already talked about applying updates and virus alerts or virus updates and security updates, all those kind of things. But what you need to think about is, what are you going to do if your device gets stolen? If you lose your device overseas, what are you going to do? How are you going to get that information? So Google, Google and Apple, they all have different services called Device Finder or Find My iPhone. What this does is, if enabled, you can go log into your account on any computer and you can see where your phone is. As well as you can remotely deactivate your phone. So if you've lost it or someone's stolen it, you can remotely wipe that phone, so it basically becomes what's called a brick. Nobody can use it. It's basically garbage. And that protects your information and protects them from getting in, and it wipes it so they can't use the card or use the phone or get the information off of it. Next, you need to think about disabling your auto connect. What this is when you connect to a public Wi-Fi or connect to any Wi-Fi, you put the password in order to connect. There's a little box at the bottom that says automatically connect. What that means is, next time when you come back to the Wi-Fi network, it's automatically going to remember it and it's going to connect and go into it. That's great for your home network. It's great for your business or places you go that you know is safe and trustworthy. But when you're connecting to, again, Starbucks, you connect, you forget about the auto connect, but you connect, use your VPN, you do everything safely, and it's great. You go away somewhere. Well, later on the day, you walk past that same Starbucks later on, not thinking about it. Your phone will automatically connect to that network. And if you're standing outside looking at a map, not thinking about it, you're going to pass all that data through or give someone access to your phone if they're able to penetrate your device. So always turn that off if you're connecting to public networks. Same goes for Bluetooth. If you're not using Bluetooth, turn it off. They broadcast all the time. Most recent attacks we've seen that they've done in academia is they've attacked a Bluetooth device from 30 meters away, where they were able to get in, to connect, and access the device. I like sitting on planes and turning my Bluetooth phone mode on and just seeing how many devices I can connect to. And there's many iPhones that I could just connect to and start airdropping and sending information to. People just don't realize that is always broadcasting and available. So just think about turning that off. Okay, so like I said, with those preparing to travel tips, a lot of them, once you set them up and get used to using them, you won't be doing that every single time you travel. But it's something to always think about and prepare yourself for before you start traveling. So now we're going to move into while we're traveling, what you need to think about. And I'm going to go through things you should be doing, as well as I'm going to talk about some different attacks that criminals are doing right now to try to get people's devices information. Okay, so first off, don't update. When you're traveling, when you're going out and doing stuff, when you're on public Wi-Fi, public networks, do not update your devices. Unless you absolutely have to, because it's a critical update being pushed by Google or Apple. My recommendation even still would be wait till you're home. when you're connected to a public Wi-Fi or a hotel Wi-Fi or something like that, it is very easy for someone to create a fake web page and rebroadcast it on that network. So you could think that you're updating some Microsoft.com, but you're actually updating from MicrosoftUpdates.com, which doesn't actually exist. And they're pushing a fake file down to you, which can contain a virus, malware, or what we call a RAT, a remote access tool, which allows somebody to take full control of your device. So it's very easy for them to mimic these pages and mimic these sites and redirect the traffic to these fake sites that you may not even realize you're connecting to a right site because you're just so focused on updating. So you're not paying attention to those indicators to realize it's a fake site, such as HTTPS in the corner. So wait until you get home. You've already taken that time to make sure your devices are fully updated. You're not gone for that long where it's going to be that big of a risk if something does, a new update does come out, that you'll be able to wait until you get home. So think about that when you're traveling. Okay, this one I'm going to spend a bit of time on. Public Wi-Is or even hotel Wi-Fis, they may seem secure because you're putting a password in and you think it's reputable because you're going to the Hilton's Wi-Fi network available. They are horribly unsecure. Attackers and criminals like sitting on these networks, scanning for people that are sending information open that they're able to infiltrate or take the time to access your device. So I'll go back the other way. So just to show you, not everybody is susceptible to this. You could be attacked anywhere. So I think this was back in 2013. I was traveling in Malaysia and I got hit. So I connected to a hotel Wi-Fi. Within 10 minutes of connecting to a hotel Wi-Fi, again, this is before really VPNs were popular and all that stuff. Just within 10 minutes of connecting to a hotel Wi-Fi, I had 2 million yen charged to my Google account and all of my Google, Microsoft, Facebook, everything, all my accounts were locked out. In the end of it, it was only 80 cents Canadian, so it wasn't a huge amount, but it's just to show how quickly, if somebody has the right tools running on a network, they can fully take control of all of your information and get into your accounts and charge whatever they want. So it's just something to think about. So two of the main attacks that we see all the time, and it's very common on public Wi-Fi, is what's called man-in-the-middle or rogue Wi-Fi networks. What a man-in-the-middle attack is you're connecting to Starbucks's Wi-Fi, you're connecting to their legitimate Wi-Fi network to use it. But somebody sits on that network in the middle and they're scanning all your traffic. So every web page you access, every password you send, hopefully you didn't do your banking, but all your banking information, again, that's still encrypted, but pieces can be pulled out. They're sitting there and they're scanning everything and taking everything that they possibly can get off of you in order to either get into your other accounts or take the time to get into your device. The other one was called a rogue Wi-Fi network. So what this is, and for about 150 Canadian, I can build a device that can do this. It's a device that you set up in the middle of a coffee shop, and I rebroadcast, say, Starbucks's network. So you think you're connecting to Starbucks's Wi-Fi network, but you're actually connecting to my fake network. And by doing that, you're giving me every bit of information that you're sending in the open. So I'm happily giving you internet for free, give you as much as you want, but you're giving me all your information. And that's where that VPN comes in. It's very crucial by encrypting your data, sending through a VPN through a direct tunnel back to the company you're using. That penetrator can't pull that information out. Again, it is possible if someone sat there for a long enough time and had the right tools, but it is very, very difficult to do. So that's why it's very, very crucial to use that VPN network. The other thing that we see with the rogue Wi-Fi networks is you're traveling and you go to again, I like coffee shops. So we'll go to a coffee shop. They may not have their own Wi-Fi network, but they have the network that I've made for them to reproduce inside their network. So you think you're connecting to, free Wi-Fi at John's coffee shop, but you're actually connecting again to mine. Again, it's very easy to do. So it's something to think about, and why I stress again to always use a VPN network when you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi. It's incredibly crucial. Okay, VPNs are travel routers. These have gotten pretty big over the last couple of years. They're fantastic devices. They're quite small. Here's one here. See, it's very, very tiny. What these are is they are travel routers to allow you to connect to networks around the world, wherever you are. Think of it like your home network. You have the modem that's given to you by your internet provider, and generally that modem will also be a Wi-Fi network. And so it basically takes the internet from the outside, and then it connects it to your internal Wi-Fi network and gives you internet internally. These devices do kind of the same thing. What you can do is, with this device, it's, let's say, hotel Wi-Fi. I log into my little travel router here. I connect in. I connect my travel router to the hotel's Wi-Fi, and then it then broadcasts my internal network to my hotel room. There's a couple things that's great about this. One, you don't have to connect all your devices to an unsecure network. These little devices have built-in firewalls and routers for control, so it's a bit more security to keep your devices safe on public Wi-Fi's. But one of the great benefits of them are, I don't have to, if say you're a family of 4, you got 4 iPads, 4 phones, 2 laptops, I don't have to connect all of those devices to the hotel Wi-Fi. My devices always remember my Wi-Fi network on my travel router, and anywhere I go, as long as I plug it in, it automatically connects on all my devices. Like I say, these things are nice and small, they're great. I've run it off a little USB power bank in a hotel or in a coffee shop, so that way I had my own internal Wi-Fi network inside a coffee shop. But they're getting even better. So this is one of the newer ones I've been playing around with. Again, it's still quite small. I have a little bag it fits in. But what's great about these ones, which again is here in the bottom left of the screen, they have built-in VPNs inside of them. So with that VPN I purchased earlier, I don't have to put that on every single one of my devices. I don't have to turn it on every one of my devices while I'm in a hotel. I turn the Wi-Fi on and off, the VPN on and off on this little device, and that device or the router is connected to VPN, and all of my devices internal to my hotel room are safe and secure and running through a VPN connection out. So no one can scan my network, because one, these routers have created their own separate network from the hotel Wi-Fi. So you can't scan it. No one can see me. All they see is just one connection going out. And it makes it very difficult for someone to try to take your information or control your devices. They're quite cheap. This one's only about 50 Canadian, so not expensive. This bigger one, which has more power and is a bit more difficult to set up, it's still pretty cheap. It's about $100. They're not overly expensive. They come with pretty easy manuals to set up. They sound complicated, and they can be if you really get into doing the settings on them. But if you're just going to just connected to Wi-Fi and rebroadcast internally, they're very easy to set up. The walkthrough videos they have for them is very very basic level for how to configure them to set them up in a hotel room. So I highly recommend, if you don't have one, you should have one of these when you're traveling to pop it in and out of hotels and Wi-Fi's that you're going to be using. Okay, so this one is not necessarily cyber security. This is more physical security of devices. I stress over and over again, and my wife is horrible for it, and I'll talk about that in a sec. Control your devices. Take control of it. What I like to put it this way, think about your laptop. Would you take your laptop and throw it around, or throw it in your pocket, or just randomly throw it in a bag? No, the laptop's expensive. You generally think to take control of it because it's a physical big item, and we think that it's expensive. So we don't toss it around. We don't leave it out so someone could basically take it. But our phones, we have a different perspective of them. Because we don't pay for them flat out, we're paying them on a 3-year contract. We think that they're not expensive devices, but in reality, those phones are actually sometimes more money than the laptop you purchased, and sometimes they're more powerful than the laptops you have. So take the time to control those devices and realize where you're putting them and what they're doing with them. I see it all the time when walking around here in London, or even just traveling. People will go up to a crosswalk, and they'll stop at a stoplight, whichever. They'll pull their phone out and start checking maps or texting somebody. That is very easy for someone to come along on a scooter or a bike and just take your phone and keep riding, and you've lost it. So take that time just to back away from the road, turn your back to the road if you're going to use your device. Just think of what's around you while you're using it, and don't get tunnel vision into your device to focus on it. Think of what's around. The other thing we see all the time is someone sitting at a restaurant uses their device and puts it down beside them. It's very easy for someone to distract you, pick it up and walk out. The last one is, and my wife is horrible for it, and I take her phone all the time while I do it. I'll let people throw their phone in their back pocket, walk around. It's quite a big device, so it's hard to fit in your front pocket. So it makes sense to throw it in that back pocket. But what they think is, oh, my phone, my jeans or my pants are tight, I'm going to feel someone taking my phone. Well, that's a wrong perspective to have. When you think about pickpocketers have been taking wallets for years, and they're a lot thicker than your phone is, without you realizing it's gone. So it's very easy for someone just to grab that and walk away. So I stress again, just basically control what you do with your device. Don't pull it out in places. Use it in a controlled environment and pay attention to what's around you, so someone can't just come up and grab it and run out. The other one is in metros. People will sit in the seat on their phone. I've seen it happen before. Someone grabs it and runs out the door. You now can't get out because the door's locked. So just be aware of what's around you while you're using your devices. Okay, this is a new one. It sounds exciting. It sounds amazing, but this has really exploded in the last 2 to 3 years. Even when I talk about this at work, a lot of my colleagues in cybersecurity have never heard of it before. It's what's called juice jacking. It sounds really neat, but it's bad. It's a pretty bad one that's popping up. What it is when you plug your phone into a cable and plug it into a wall, that cable isn't just a power cable. It also passes data to and from your phone. So what they're seeing now is a lot of people are hiding devices on USB ports to steal information off phones. This sounds like, oh, this isn't that big of a risk. But what we've done in the last couple of years is we've put USB ports everywhere to allow people easy access to charge their phones. So if you walk in airports, they're all over the seats. Airplanes have them now, trains. When you go to your new updated hotel rooms, they're plastered everywhere, and every device you can think of has a USB port for charging. It's great, but where the risk to that is people can steal your data. Once you connect to their device, not realizing it, when you think you're just plugging your USB cable in to charge your phone, they can sit there and pull the data off your phone because your phone isn't able to pass data through that device. The next thing is what it is, they can push malware or viruses the opposite way onto your device. And they can then take control of your device because you've allowed them to put the data up. So what I stress is just, if you're going to be traveling, always ensure you either have a couple things, either a wall charger with a USB port so you can plug into an electrical socket. Then you know that your device is safe because you know that charger is yours and it's not a tampered with device. But even easier, you should always just have a battery, USB battery pack with you. It's quick and easy to charge. They're not expensive anymore. I think they're like $30 on Amazon. And you can get some pretty powerful ones where you can get about 10 charges to charge 10 different devices. They're really great, and they're great for controlling this kind of stuff. The other option is what's called a data blocker, or it's a bad name, but it's also called a USB condom. It's just a little tiny device, plugs into your USB cable before you plug it into the wall. And what this device does is it disables the data pins on the cable. So data can't flow through that cable anymore, only power can. So this again is your last resort. If you don't have any other option or any way to do it, use one of these to plug into the wall. What we found, and a couple issues that we've seen, with hotel rooms, they're putting these USB, like I mentioned before, they're putting the USB ports on anything. I've seen some on lamps, and I read a study a while ago where they actually opened up one of these lamps in a hotel room, and inside was an entire device of collecting information. Where the risk to this is somebody is sitting there, they're not collecting it in real time and taking it back with them. They're coming back into the hotel room in about a month to 2 months and taking that device out and then downloading all the data. Where this is bad is you're going to be safe, you're going to think you're being safe, and you go back to your home and you've checked all your information, you know you're safe. But they're not attacking you right away. They're going to wait 2 or 3 months after you're back and you're not thinking about traveling or what you did, And that's when they're going to start accessing your accounts if they have the information. And it's that later time of what the risk is. And so you need to be aware of, if you're connecting your devices to these kind of things, what kind of, again, it goes back to my first slide, what information is on your phone and what could they get a hold of? Okay. So new one that's kind of blown up since the pandemic, QR codes. So if you're not aware, a QR code is essentially a barcode. It's a 3D type barcode that allows you to scan it with your phone, and it will redirect you to a website. So that can go to any website they want inside that 3D code. It's great. A lot of restaurants have instituted this in order to not have physical menus. So you sit down at a table, you scan the QR code, it takes you to their website or their app, and then you can order your drinks or order your devices and look at order your drinks or food and look at the menu. This is great. It's very convenient for restaurants, but it's also very easy for attacker and hackers to use, because I can really just stick my own QR code over top of it and I can redirect you to any website I want. Where you think you may be downloading a menu for that specific restaurant, because I can make the website look identical to theirs, but what you're actually downloading is the files I want you to. So I could be downloading viruses or controlling malware onto your device that allows me to get your information or take control of your device. So what I recommend is, don't blanketly rely on these QR codes to just scan them and go wherever they send you. Go talk to the bartender, go talk to the server, and make sure you're using the main barcode. So check with them, they'll have it behind the counter. Verify with the one on the table to make sure you're not just blanketly using those codes. Okay, so that should kind of cover off everything while we're traveling. Hopefully I didn't terrify you with some of that stuff. But again, those are some of the, like I said, there's many different ways that you can, your devices and yourself could be at risk, but I kind of focused on one of the ones that we're seeing a rise in when we talk about cyber intelligence. Okay, so we've gotten back, everything's done. Now the trip's over. What do we do now? So you need to sit down and scan all your devices. Make sure that while you're doing stuff, malware didn't get put on your devices or viruses. Because depending on where you're going in the world, their networks are riddled with viruses everywhere. So make sure you scan your devices. And like I mentioned at the very beginning, if you haven't or you don't have one yet, ensure you have a virus scanner on your phone or your mobile device. Okay, now that we're home, we're on our safe network and where we know it's safe, we know it's secure. This is the time you want to then go back and update all your devices. Apply those security updates, apply those operating system updates, those virus updates, all those kind of things. This is the time to go and make sure your devices are updated now that you're back. And that will then check to make sure all security holes are closed and all those kind of things. So that way your device is safe now that you're back home. Changing passwords. So when you get home, I don't recommend changing every password you have. But what I do recommend is if you connected to a public Wi-Fi and you accessed your Facebook account or your Gmail or your banking or something like that, which I hope you didn't do your banking on a public Wi-Fi because that's horrible. But any of the kind of things, if you've accessed some kind of account on a public Wi-Fi, you should really consider changing that password. That just makes sure you're safe and secure. And why I say to change this immediately when you get home, when I mentioned before with the juice jackers, how they'll take your information for a later period, passwords are the same. What happens is if somebody compromises a website or gets passwords or logins, they will then, that information will sit for a while, and a hacker will then go and try that password and login on any site they know of in order to see if you're using the same password on multiple accounts. So make sure you change that password as soon as you can, so that way if someone did get your password, they're not going to get into your accounts right away. And to carry on from this, if you are using passwords, I highly suggest you Google something called a passphrase, which is a random 3 words. It's much harder to hack or harder to what we call attack or steal than just a generic password is. Just something as an extra little thought process for you. Okay, last, delete apps. So now that we're traveling now, there are so many apps for everything. Every airline, train, city, transit, restaurant. Everybody has their own app now because they want to pull you to it so they can try to sell you other stuff. They're great, they're needed, they're helpful while you're traveling in these countries for what you're doing. But when you get home, you don't need them anymore. So delete them, start clearing out all those apps from your travel to make sure you don't have them anymore. What this also does is that if that app gets compromised later on where someone pushes false information into it, when your device automatically updates to that new version, well, you're not at risk because you've already gotten rid of it. And by the time you use it again by download it and install it, it's already going to be verified that there was an issue with that specific app, and you'll get the new safer version. So just take the time to clear out your devices and get rid of all those apps that you had that you don't need anymore. So that kind of hopefully covers off everything. My intention wasn't to scare you away from traveling or using stuff. It's just to understand that there's always going to be risks when you use your devices overseas, and some countries are much worse than other ones. I'm not going to list off which countries are bad and which ones are good, because that's going to sound like badmouth countries. But it's just take the time to look up those different countries. Government of Canada, the travel website, was it travel.gc.ca, they, in their risks to countries, they started listing cyber risks in some of those countries. So you can start reading up on what some of those risks are.